Hello and welcome to the chorus. Making decisions is the most important activity that any living person on earth must do every single day. It's also the toughest and the riskiest of things to do, because bad decisions can damage your personal life, or your business, or your career, or your relationships, sometimes in a way that is not even repairable. So where do bad decisions come from? In many cases, they can be traced back to the way the decisions were made. Okay? That is, the alternative possibilities, the alternative decisions that could have been made were not clearly defined, or the right information, for example, was not collected, or maybe the cost and the benefits were not accurately weighed. Okay? Or it could be a conglomeration of all these things. But sometimes the fault lies not in the decision-making process, but rather in the mind of the person who is making the decision. See, the way the human brain works is not always 100% in our favor, but can sometimes actually sabotage our decisions. Researchers have been studying the way our minds function for over half a century in making decisions, and this research, both in the laboratory and in the field, has revealed that we use subconscious routines to cope with the complexity inherent in most decisions from day to day. That is because the subconscious mind is where learned habits, as well as our mental programming, comes from, and thus it is the main tool we use to make decisions, whether consciously or unconsciously. Routines that we use to make decisions also are known as heuristics. Okay? Heuristics. And they serve us well in most situations. Take, for example, judging distance or proximity. Our minds frequently rely on a heuristic that equates clarity with proximity. And the clearer the object appears, the closer we judge it to be. The fuzzier it appears, the farther away we assume it must be. This simple mental shortcut helps us make the continuous stream of distance judgments required to navigate our environment, our immediate environment, and our world. However, like most heuristics, it is not foolproof. On days, for example, that are very hazy, cloudy, more cloudier than normal, for example, our eyes will tend to trick our minds into thinking that things are more distant than they actually appear to be. Because the resulting distortion poses few dangers for most of us, we can simply ignore it. However, for example, an airline pilot take, who is flying a 747 airliner filled with passengers, this distortion can prove to be absolutely catastrophic. That's why pilots are trained to use objective measures of distance in addition to their normal vision. Researchers have identified a whole series of such flaws in the way that we think in terms of making decisions. Some, like the heuristic for clarity, are sensory misperceptions. Others take the form of biases, and others appear simply as irrational anomalies in our thinking. What makes all these traps so dangerous is the fact that they are invisible, or that we are unconscious of them when they are actually happening. Because they are hardwired into our thinking process, and so we fail to recognize them, even sometimes falling right into them, again, as they are happening right in front of our eyes. For example, take an executive whose success hinges on the many day-to-day decisions that they make can prove these psychological traps are especially dangerous. They can undermine anything from new product development, to acquisition, to divestiture strategy, to succession planning. While no one can rid his or her mind of these ingrained flaws, anyone can follow the lead of airline pilots and learn to understand the traps and compensate for them. In this course, by Self-Creation Technologies, we will examine a number of well-documented psychological traps that are particularly likely to undermine both personal and/or business decisions. In addition to reviewing the causes and manifestations of these traps, this course will offer some specific ways that you can guard against them It's important to remember, though, that the best offense is always a higher level of awareness. Remember that. Students who become enrolled in this course, who familiarize themselves with these traps and the diverse forms they take, will be better able to ensure that the decisions they make are sound and the recommendations proposed by subordinates, for example, or associates, or parents, or boyfriends, or girlfriends, or whoever, prove to be reliable. And so in the next lesson, we will begin talking about the first psychological trap that I call the anchoring trap. So I'll see you in the next lesson.